I'm Robert Griffin, RCRedBaron, and thank you for joining me today as we talk about coupling issues during your knife edge maneuvers. Now, what am I talking about, coupling issues? We're talking about when you flip into a knife edge position and the plane wants to either pull towards the canopy or pull towards the gear during your knife edge. That's coupling. We can actually dial that out using a programmable radio and just a couple of mixes where we mix the rudder to the elevator to compensate for that push and pull. We're also going to be covering how to deal with rolling out. Sometimes when you're doing a knife edge, it stays nice and straight, but it tends to want to roll left or right. So we can also use a mix to dial our rudder to our ailerons and dial that out. So next time you go to do a knife edge, you can do them true and straight and make them look really, really nice. So let's get in the air. I'm going to show you a couple of knife edge. I'm going to talk about a couple of the issues you might have and then show you how to dial those issues out on the radio. I'll see you on the field. Alright, so we're going to drop it into a knife edge, and I'm actually having to pull the elevator back because it's wanting to push and pull toward the gear. I'm going to try it one more time to see what's happening. And this is going to require a little bit of time and effort. You're going to have to keep going up, and you're going to have to land. You're going to have to go back up. You're going to have to land. So I'm going to come around, get us back into a knife edge. And I'm going to pay attention to what I have to do to keep the knife edge straight. So I'm actually having to pull the elevator back to keep this straight, because it wants to pull. If I let go, see how it pulls toward the gear? So I need to dial that out. So I'm going to remember when I push my rudder to the right, I'm also having to pull back on the elevator just a little bit. So remember that. So now we're going to go ahead and land, and we're going to dial that mix out. So it's right rudder means back on the elevator. Alright, so we just performed a knife edge from right to left, and I was holding the rudder to the right, and when I was doing so, it had the tendency to push toward the gear. So what I need is that elevator during my full deflection of rudder to pull the elevator back, and I'm exaggerating here, but I needed the elevator to pull back a little bit, and it really wasn't too much. So I'm going to guess probably 5 or 6% of pullback. So what you want to do is go into your radio, and let's see if we can show it here. Alright, so looking at the radio, I'm going to go into the function list. I want to go down here to my rudder to aileron elevator mix. All servos hold is no. And what I'm looking for is this one here, because when I go to the right, when I'm pushing my stick to the right to hold the elevator, okay, there's the right position, there's to the right. I actually need it to pull up a little bit because it was pulling toward the gear. So I'm going to dial in about 5% of up elevator. Now I'm going to show you an exaggerated so you can tell in case you get confused. Here's how you do this. Hold your rudder to the right. I'm going to move the radio. Hold your rudder to the right. Okay? Now I don't know if you can see it, but the elevator is slightly moving. So what you can do to make sure that you're getting it correct, because I know it can be confusing, and you can see my plus 5% there, what I can do is I can actually roll that and exaggerate it extremely. So hold the rudder and move. Look at that, I'm at 30%, and look how much that moved it. So I can tell that it's doing what I want it to, because when I'm in the right rudder position, I need that elevator, I need the elevator to pull up. And that is simply by doing the roll. I am simply rolling the roller ball, and I think about 5%, because it really doesn't need a lot. So now you can barely see, let me zoom in here for you. You can see the rudder, just as I push the rudder, you can see the elevator pulling up just a little bit. So that should give me my coupling issue when I'm doing a right to left knife edge. and that's canopy facing me. Now we do the same thing when we're doing the other direction. If you're holding your rudder in the air to your left, because you're doing a left to right with the canopy facing you, you do the same thing, only this time it's with the left. Because when you push left, I need it to actually, again, I need it to pull, but I noticed because I've already done this, I needed a negative 9%. Alright, so now we've mixed that out. So now the next stage, we're going to try it again to see if that helped. Now I put in a 5%. So let's see if 5% helped dial it nice and straight. Come around, pop into my knife edge. Oh yeah. I'm not having to push or pull on anything in that position. Now let's pay attention. When I do the right rudder to hold my knife edge from right to left with canopy facing me, it had a tendency to roll out just a little bit. So I actually had to hold my ailerons to the left. And you notice with the left, it's going down a little bit. So while you're flying, do one step at a time. First configure your elevator position, then worry about your rolling out. So land, and remember, when you were pushing right, that aileron needed to come down a little bit on the right. You were pushing to the left, which means that aileron on the right needs to come down a little bit. So we're going to go back into the radio, and we're going to go into the mix, and that's here. So R's for right, because I was pushing the rudder to the right, and I needed it to go down. Now if you're not sure if it's negative or positive, all you got to do is rotate this knob in exaggerated motions and then take a look at your aileron. You'll notice I went plus 35 and it's up, and I actually needed it down. So what we can do, since I went the wrong direction, I'm going to roll. Now remember, I'm holding the rudder full to the right so that I can see the motion. So I'm going to roll it down to about negative 9, and you'll notice the aileron, as I push the rudder to the right, the aileron drops a little bit. So that's going to pull out the rolling issue. Now it might take you 10 flights, takeoff and landings, but once you do, you'll get a knife edge that without holding any aileron or elevator, look at that, that is straight, and I did no aileron or elevator inputs. Alright, so there you go. We've dialed out our coupling issues during our knife edges. We've mixed in our elevators to our rudder, and we've mixed in the ailerons to the rudder. So stay tuned next time for more helpful tips. I'm Robert Griffin, RCRedBaron, and we'll catch you next time. Alright, so there we go. Using our JR11X, we've now programmed out the coupling issues when you're in your knife edge. Now since the 11X has a special program mix for rudder to aileron and elevator, I'm going to show you how to use one or two mixes to mix out the exact same thing using multiple different radios. I've got a 6i, a 7, an 8, and a 9503 here that I'm going to try to briefly show you how to program those out. Alright, so we got our DX6i. We're going to go ahead and turn it on. We'll go into our menu system, and we want to go down to mix 1, and in mix 1 we want to activate it, and we're going to change it to rudder. The rudder will control the elevator. Okay, so now we have the left side and the right side. So basically I need the right, so when I'm holding right I need that positive 5% like we did in the 11X. Now this part is exactly like the 11X, so when I'm holding right I want to change that percentage, and that percentage is indicated here on the right side, so it's left and right. Okay, so I'm going to roll down to here, and I want to put a positive 5% in. Okay. Now again, once you're doing this, have the plane on so that as you hold this to the side and as you adjust these values, you can make sure that it's either a positive or a negative for your plane, your receiver, because you might need a negative 5% here. It should be a positive 5%, and on the left side, going to the left, it'll actually on this side be a negative if I wanted the same thing. But it can be a little confusing, so just have the plane on and rotate it up and down. So again, for that side, I needed a negative 9%. So there we are with negative 9%. So that's our rudder to our elevator, exactly like we did on the other system. Now down here, switch is on, so this just means that the mix is on. Now we can turn this mix on and off by selecting, for instance, gear. So when I flip the gear channel on and off, this will turn that mix on and off. Okay, and again I can hook it up to the flap switch, the aileron dual rate, the elevator dual rate, the mix switch, and always on. So I'm always on because even no matter what other maneuvers I'm doing, since it's got the tendency to pull, having this mix already set up in all your maneuvers will make the rest of them all nice and smooth as well. I'm leaving the trim inactive though. You can actually turn this on so that as you do any trim inputs, it'll also affect this mix, but I'm not worried about it. So let's go ahead and go back to our list, and we're going to do the same thing, mix 2, and we're going to control rudder. This time rudder to the ailerons, and it's active. Okay. So again, when I'm holding to the right, if I need right aileron or left aileron, I can set this up inside here. So since I'm working on the right rudder, then I want to be working on this side over here, left and right. And this time is actually labeled left and right. So here I'm going to go ahead and put in that positive 9%, just like the 11X, and it's set. Okay, so let's go ahead and move on to our next one. Okay, so let's move on to the DX7. We're going to basically do the same thing. The only difference with the DX7 is you actually have 6 mixes that you can use. So we're going to go ahead and turn it on. We're going to go into our menu, and mine pops up right at the dual rate and exponential. So what I want to do here is just go ahead and find our mixes. There's mix 6, 5, 4. Now I've already gone ahead and set it up. So under mix 1, I set it up again, rudder to elevator, it's on, it's left and right. So you're going to have to, in order to choose which side you're on, this little arrow, I'm going to have to push right or left. So in other words, this little arrow here is indicating we're on the right hand side. So if I hold the rudder stick to the left, you notice the arrow moves up to the top, to the left side. So it's left and that's right. Left, right, left. And remember, I wanted a negative 9%, on the right, positive 5%. Again, switch is on and no offset. And offset, we can go into that later. It's in your manual, but it basically allows you to set up a kind of basically a delay in basic terms. So there you go. There's your mix 1, rudder to elevator, and then we can simply go to mix 2, rudder to aileron. And again, left and right. So I hold the rudder. So I hold the rudder to the right. There's your 9%. Switch is on. Again, you can change this switch, and you can adjust. So in other words, that's the mix switch, or it's always on. Okay. So you can tell it which way to turn it on and off. So there we go. 2 mixes. Both of them programming, one rudder to aileron, the other one rudder to elevator. And there you go. That simple on your DX7. Alright, we're going to cover the DX8, and this will also cover the new DX7S. So in the future, if you're watching this video and the DX7S's are out, the system's going to be the same for that as well. So again, we're going to turn the unit on. It'll power up. And we're going to hit the roller here to go into our menu. We're going to go down to mixing. And what I like about the DX8 and the new DX7S is you actually have a monitor screen here on the side, so you can actually watch what happens as you input these percentages. So I'm going to go down here and change. I'm going to select aileron and rudder because that's not the one I want to work on. I'm going to rotate to the right. Up, there it is, mix 1. I want mix 1. I'm going to click it. And I'm going to come down here and change the first inhibit to rudder. Change this one to elevator. So now we're working rudder to elevator. Again, it's left and right. Okay? So I want to work on the right side, which is here. I'm going to hold my rudder to the right. Okay, so I'm holding the rudder to the right. So what I'm going to do is not only can I have the plane on and be watching, but I can also watch the monitor. So I'm going to select. I'm going to start inputting. I'm going to exaggerate. Notice your elevator here is moving. Look at all that. So as I go, that is me pushing the rudder to the right, and notice the elevator is really moving. So let's drop it back down to 5%. Now I want to do the left. Let's go -9%. Okay, so now my elevator is moving in the correct direction. And again, down here at the bottom you can change to what switch if you want to turn this mix on and off. Again, I leave mine on. Alright, so we're done there. Let's go up here, select mix 1, scroll over, mix 2, and I've already set this one up. Notice I've changed it rudder to aileron. Again, the left side I didn't do nothing, but the right side I needed -9%. Again, it's on. So there we go, just like the DX6i and the DX8. The only benefit with this one, extra, you get this nice little monitor. You can actually see what's happening on your transmitter. Alright, so let's move on. Alright, so here we are. This is my 9503, and this will also cover if you have a 9303. They're basically the same programming. This one just has a little few extra features in it. So let's go ahead and again, we're going to turn the unit on, and then we're going to go into our menu system. I hit list. Now the difference with the 9503 is that mix 1 and 2 actually have a curve system in it. So if I go into mix 1 and I activate it, you notice I've got the curve here and I can set points all the way down. There's an easier way on this one. Instead, I'm going to come down here and start at mix 3. I'm going to use mix 3 and 4, or you can use 5 and 6. But I'm going to start with mix 3. And you'll notice when you go into this system, it actually has rudder to elevator, and it actually has the same left and right, -9%, +5%. Okay? Alright, so we've got to set rudder to elevator. Now this here allows you to set up, not only can you turn it on and off by selecting which switch you want to turn it on and off by, but if you turn it on and off, notice position 1 is off, 0 and 0, and in position 0 it's on. So if I tell it to, let's say I'm going to use the rudder switch, let's say I want to do that, and I come here and activate the rudder switch. So now whenever I hit the rudder dual rate switch, I can turn it on and off. So in the 0 position, I'm going to actually be on using it. If I want to turn it off, and I flip the rudder switch to the 1 position, I now have nothing. However, I can also set this up, if I wanted to have some kind of a different throw, maybe just a little bit more, maybe not as exaggerated. So if you have different rates, if you have a strong 3D rate and maybe a really low IMAC rate, you could actually set up more gentle pull system. Okay? So again, it's just right and left, left and right, -9%, +5%, just like the other radios. And again, these are how you turn it on and off if you want. And we're going to do the same thing for the aileron. Come down here to mix 4, and you'll see I've already got it set up rudder to aileron. And that's nothing more than sliding the roller, you select rudder, aileron. Okay? And again, left and right. Okay? And you notice I have on the right side -9%, just like the other radios. Same basic system. So there's your 9303 and your 9503. Alright, so there you go. We've got everything dialed in on your DX6i, your DX7, DX8, the 9303 or the 9503, and the JR11X. Now again, when the new DX7S's come out, they're modeled after the DX8, so you're going to be able to program basically the exact same way on the DX7S as we just showed you on the DX8. Now on the 11X, if for some reason you want to, you can set up the exact same system using mix 1 or 2 or 3 or 4. It's the same basic setup. So I hope I've helped just a little bit. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them down below and I'll be happy to try to answer them for you. I'm Robert Griffin, RC Red Baron for Hobby King. Thank you for joining me.